Hi my friend. Today I will tell you about the basic rules of MMA that you need to know in order to start watching these martial arts. Let's start, and with you, like and subscribe is the best motivation for me. What is MMA in general? Literally, MMA, mixed martial arts, translates as mixed martial arts. The whole point lies in the name. MMA differs from other types of martial arts in that fighters have the right to use an arsenal of techniques from all known styles. Simply put, MMA is boxing, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, karate and Muay Thai. Not to be confused with a cocktail, in one bottle. Therefore, MMA is the only sport where the base of an athlete is essential. As a rule, athletes are divided into two categories. A basic wrestler, an athlete who was originally engaged in judo, sambo, jiu-jitsu or some other types of wrestling, and a striker, an athlete who started his career in boxing, kickboxing or Thai boxing. It is impossible to call MMA fights without rules, because there are rules here, and they are quite strict. So, for example, you cannot bite, pinch, scratch, spit at the enemy or drag him by the hair, on all parts of the body. Blows to the head, groin, spine, throat and the back of the head are also prohibited. Poking your fingers into your eyes, nostrils, cheeks and ears or deliberately pressing on the cuts received in battle is also impossible. And it is also prohibited to strike down with a sharp point of the elbow and kick the opponent, who is on the octagon floor with 3 points of support. The octagon is the main symbol of MMA, which is also called the cage. This is an octagonal ring with a diameter of 9.1 meters, fenced with a metal mesh 1.8 meters high. The cage is not designed to lock fighters in it at all. Rather, it was created to help them, as it gives a lot of advantages and additional techniques. For example, an athlete can lean on the cage with his back to get up from the stalls, or hold the famous Showtime kick with a push from the net. How are the fights going? If you think that the main action takes place on a specific day and the appointed hour, then we hasten to surprise you. The show starts long before the two fighters meet in the octagon. Weighing, after which the fighters eat 9 kilograms per day. The procedure for determining the weight of the fighters takes place a day before the fight. It is necessary for athletes to meet the limits of their chosen weight category, which in MMA have a fairly large step. If in boxing the weight category changes every 1.5 to 3 kilograms, then there may be a gap of 10 kilograms between the fighters. It would seem, well, weighed, but in MMA it's not so simple. Division by categories does not oblige an athlete to perform only in one weight. He can periodically drive weight, gain and lose weight in order to perform simultaneously in 2 neighboring divisions, picking up a suitable opponent and winning titles in different categories. Vesaganka is one of the most ambiguous sides of MMA. But it is also one of the main tasks of MMA fighters before entering the cage. In the period between fights and training camps, many athletes weigh 10 to 15 kilograms more than their category. Extreme weight loss is achieved by a whole range of measures. But the most difficult stage, especially for the body, comes 3 days before the fight. To get rid of fluid in the body and reduce weight, hot baths, sauna, thermal suits and diuretics are used. The day before the weigh-in, fighters, as a rule, refuse food and water. We will not disclose in detail all the ways to lose kilograms that fighters use under the control of a whole staff of specialists, because these methods are extremely risky. Let's say one thing. Sometimes an athlete goes to the weigh-in with the help of a team, because he is exhausted. After the weigh-in is completed, the fighter begins to gain weight again to recover. But they still don't give him a proper meal. Instead of burgers and steak, vitamins and trace elements are on the menu. And lots of water. And it gives an amazing effect. However, sometimes athletes do not cope with the task and end up in the hospital with severe exhaustion. And the fight is cancelled. Stare down, or duel of views. A kind of ritual that takes place, as a rule, after weighing in more resembles an element of the show. During the stare down, the fighters stand opposite each other as close as possible and play peekaboo, trying to reconsider the opponent, suppress him with a look. Sometimes the duel of views ends in a brawl, so there is always a guard on duty next to the fighters. Trash talk, or a minute of insults thrashing is a skill in the arsenal of a fighter, which is needed in a professional career no less than the ability to strike. Trash talk is translated from English as dirty chatter. In practice, this is how it turns out. 2 fighters meet a day before the fight and in an unflattering form, everyone publicly explains why he will win and how weak his opponent is. In fact, this is part of the show, which not only heats up interest in the fight, But sometimes, if the fighter has a special gift of eloquence, and brings athletes an additional fee from the promotion. Sometimes fighters get carried away. For example, in 2018, Conor McGregor, on the eve of the same fight with Khabib during a thrash current, went too far and managed to insult not only his opponent, but also his father, wife, and also touch on religious issues. After such a fight, Nurmagomedov became a principled one. Interestingly, after that defeat, McGregor did not go too far with regard to the next opponents. The output of the fighters. During the event of the fights themselves, the output of the fighters into the octagon deserves attention. Believe me, it takes your breath away. Huge screens and bright spotlights, energetic music with a volume of 100 kilowatts of sound literally pump the audience with adrenaline. There are two types of fights in MMA. Standard fights last 3 rounds of 5 minutes. The main fights and title fights are 5 rounds of 5 minutes each. Moreover, athletes can compete both standing and lying down. But about everything in order. Punches and techniques. We will highlight only the main types of punches and techniques so that you will nightly recognize them in the octagon from the first time. Kicks are divided into low kick, kick to the lower body, in the thigh or shin, middle kick, side kick to the body. In the ribs or liver, and high kick, kick to the head. Punches are divided into straight. From the classical stance, the fist is directed at the target along a straight trajectory. Hook. A side kick that is applied with the arm bent at the elbow at medium and short distances. And uppercut. A blow along the internal trajectory, in which the fist is turned towards itself. From the techniques it is worth highlighting such as, painful. Their goal is to force the opponent to surrender due to pain or the threat of serious injury, fracture or dislocation. Among the painful techniques are levers, straightening the opponent's limb in the joint in the opposite direction. Knots. Twisting of the limbs. Pinching, strong compression of soft tissues. Suffocating. At first glance, these techniques look the most dangerous. But in fact, fighters rarely get seriously injured. Most often, in the octagon, you can see strangulation from behind, a triangle with your legs, a guillotine. A fighter grabs the opponent's neck between the armpit and forearm, locks his hands and presses on the carotid artery and trachea. And an anaconda, suffocating from the front with the disconnection of one of the opponent's hands. Throws, or takedowns, they allow you to move your opponent to a prone position, in the stalls. Wrestling in the stalls, grappling, as a rule, is practiced by wrestlers, sambo wrestlers, judoists. The main weapon in the stalls is painful and suffocating techniques. The ground and pound fighting technique is also popular for the stalls. The translation fully characterizes its essence, volley and bash. It is also worth remembering the clinch technique, the position in which the fighter presses tightly against the opponent and wraps his arms around him. Knees, elbows and shoulders are used for clinch attacks. And how to understand who is winning. Judging fights, according to the rules of MMA, 4 people are engaged at the same time, the referee and 3 judges, who are immediately behind the fence of the octagon. The referee is absolutely responsible for everything that happens before, during and after the fight. Starting from checking the octagon before the start of the fight, so that there are no unnecessary objects and liquids on it, to the decision to stop the fight early. Well, and it is also he who raises the winner's hand. As for the judges, their main task is to evaluate the athlete's technical skills, the number of strikes, the opponent's control, transfers to canvas, and so on. The judges give 10 points for each round. That is, a more successful athlete gets 10 or less points, and his opponent gets 9 or less points. Most often, if there was no serious dominance of one of the opponents, the judges evaluate the round with a score of 10 to 9. If the fight was not finished ahead of schedule, all the points awarded are added up to 3 overall scores. According to these results, the result of the match is announced, the victory of one of the athletes or a draw. But any fight can be stopped ahead of schedule, and there are 5 reasons for this. Voluntary surrender. If an athlete wants to give up, he taps the opponent or the mat with his palm, and the referee stops the fight. This often happens when an opponent holds a chokehold. Referees stop. For example, if he sees that one of the fighters is so exhausted that he misses a lot of blows and practically does not defend against them. Stopping by a doctor if he decides that the further continuation of the fight by one of the fighters puts his life or health at risk. Stop corner. The team of one of the fighters throws out the towel, that is, demands to stop the fight, if they see that their athlete loses the fight without a chance and wants to preserve his health. Knockout. This is a consequence of the blow, which leads to the fact that the fighter is partially or completely unconscious. Not to be confused with a knockdown, where the opponent has fallen, but is in himself. There are different ways to implement a knockout, but most often, although knockouts are still rare, in the octagon, you can see a back fist, a blow with the back of your fist, and a front kick, a direct kick to the head. My friend, that's it for me. As always, like and subscribe from you. And write everything down. What do you think about this video? Write in the comments. Wow.